Good morning. I'm here with BBC News, and this program comes from the very heart of London. Behind me is the Natural History Museum. Here, inside that building, the threats to our planet have never been more starkly laid out than in this exhibition on climate change, which warns that we've evenly got 10 years to turn this around before changes to our planet are irreversible. So what will those changes look like? What kind of world will we be living in if we do nothing to turn down the dial on global warming? We asked some of the world's leading scientists, and they gave us some sobering warnings about the state of our planet in 2030. If you were born in the UK, you could have experienced summer after summer of record-breaking temperatures. Last year was the hottest on record in the UK. The average temperature was nearly 1 degree higher than the Ibiza record set back in 1976. And for those of us who remembered that summer, well, we know how hot it was. But it's not just the UK that's getting hotter. Heat waves are going to become more widespread across the globe. You might be sitting there thinking, well, I like a bit of sunshine. It's a little bit too cool for me in the UK. We need some of that lovely hot weather. Well, yes, perhaps for a week or so, but after that, it becomes very dangerous. People die. You get all sorts of knock-on effects on your health, particularly those people who've got respiratory problems, could get water and food shortages because it gets too dry. Fires break out. There are all sorts of implications to a heat wave, and none of them good. Cities will be the worst affected. Many millions of people live in cities. They tend to be made of concrete. Concrete stores heat. Cities get significantly hotter than the surrounding areas. So if you live in a city, life is going to be pretty tough. In 2030, there will be 1 billion more people on the planet than there are today. Most of that growth will be in cities, which means pressure on housing, pressure on food supplies, pressure on energy supplies. All of that inevitably leads to unrest, which is why the scientists warn that unless we get on top of climate change, we will see mass migrations and conflicts over resources. We've already seen something of that. So what we've learned is that when crops fail and people get hungry, things kick off. Just look at what's happened in Sudan, for example, where you've had months of civil war and terrible scenes of bloodshed. That's partly down to the fact that the weather has been so unpredictable. It's been so difficult for people to grow their crops. People have gone hungry. It's led to unrest and conflict. There will be other consequences. For example, ocean levels will be rising. Some estimates say by up to 1 foot. That might not sound like much, but you've got to remember most of the world's major cities are on or near a coast. Those rising tides will mean more flooding, more erosion, greater risks to the coastlines. Places like Bangladesh and the Maldives will literally be under threat of extinction. Now, the question is, what can we do to stop all of that happening? Well, I spoke to some experts to find out exactly that. What do we need to do to tackle this problem? And they told me that one of the things we absolutely must do is make sure our food production is more sustainable. The way we farm at the moment is causing huge problems, whether it's deforestation in the Amazon rainforest or the amount of water that we use to water crops. Globally, food production accounts for 30% of the world's emissions. One of the ways of tackling that, according to researchers, is to encourage people to switch to eating less meat. Hide production accounts for almost 3/4 of all emissions from food. So, if you want to reduce your own carbon footprint, start in your fridge. Professor Tim Benton is the director of the Food Policy Project at the University of Leeds. He said, "You can have a really big impact by changing what you eat. If you cut out red meat from your diet, you can have your impact. If you cut out all meat from your diet, you can reduce your impact by 2/3. But don't throw away that fridge full of meat just yet." Professor Benton says another way of reducing the impact of food miles is to make sure you store your food properly. If you keep food in your fridge at -18 degrees, you can stop bugs and bacteria developing. At the moment, 30% of food globally is lost to waste or is thrown away. Another crucial area is energy. How we generate our electricity, how we heat our homes, how we power our factories are among the biggest contributors to climate change. Electricity generation accounts for 40% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Professor Paul Ekins is the director of the UCL Energy Institute. He told me we need to rethink the way we're generating electricity. He said, most of the energy we use in buildings comes from burning fossil fuels, either in boilers or in appliances. We need to switch to electricity from renewable sources to heat our homes and drive our cars. And we can do that with the technology we have today. According to Professor Atkins, we can already generate enough renewable energy to supply the entire world. He said, globally, we generate enough renewable energy every year to meet the needs of the whole planet. The trouble is, it's intermittent. The sun doesn't always shine. The wind doesn't always blow. What we need to do is improve battery storage so we can use electricity whenever we need it. Already, some progress is being made. China is the world leader in solar power, generating 265 gigawatts of electricity from the sun. The UK generated just 14 gigawatts. According to the government, the UK is on track to generate all of its electricity from renewables by 2035. Professor Atkins says the next decade will be crucial in deciding the fate of the planet. He said, in 10 years, we will have used up 80% of the carbon budget. After that, we go into dangerous territory. If we go beyond that, we will face events that are irreversible. We'll pass the point of no return. That might sound scary, but the professor is optimistic. He said, I think we will pull back from the brink. We've been talking about climate change for 40 years. Everyone thought it was going to get worse and worse, but it hasn't. And I think that's because we have taken action at every stage. Yes, we've only done half of what we should have done, but we've stopped it from getting worse. He says individuals can make a difference. He said, we often hear young people saying, what are we going to do? It's too late. We're doomed. And I always say, no, you're not. You're not doomed. You're going to be fine. It's the older generations that mess things up, and it's the older generations that will face the consequences, but you will fix it. You're the ones who are going to sort it out, okay? Now, it's easy to feel powerless when you're facing such massive problems, okay? But according to Dr. Emily Schuckberg, who's a senior lecturer in climate science at Cambridge University, there's plenty we can do. She says, individuals can make small changes that will collectively add up to huge reductions in carbon emissions. She says, when we think of climate change, we think of big emitters, governments, big corporations, but actually, we can all make a difference. For example, if you buy electric, you've got an electric car. You can offset the emissions from that by planting trees. Dr. Schock is involved in a project called the Ecosystem-Based Adaptation for Food Security Assessment, which looks at how ecosystems can help deal with the impacts of climate change. One of the projects she works on involves working with farmers in northern Kenya to try and find more drought-resistant varieties of cowpea. The traditional variety grown in the region has to be constantly irrigated. It uses a lot of water. The new variety needs water once every 4 weeks. It can survive in very, very hot conditions, she said. Farmers can see the benefits of the new crop. It's drought resistant, but it's also got more protein in it. It's got more iron. It tastes nicer. It's better for their livestock. Crucially, it helps the soil. It's called a nitrogen fixer, so it improves the soil fertility, which means they can grow other crops alongside it. It's not just about finding new varieties of crops. It's also about educating farmers about what they can do to make sure their soil is in best condition to absorb carbon dioxide. She said, the amount of carbon in our soil is depleting. We need to make sure we keep carbon in the soil. If not, increase it. When farmers plow their fields, they release carbon into the atmosphere. What we were looking at is ways of keeping that carbon in the ground, so the soil acts as a carbon sink rather than releasing carbon. One of the biggest challenges facing any farmer is pests and diseases. Farmers often respond to that by using pesticides and herbicides. That too has an impact on the environment. Dr. Shock says there is a natural alternative. She said, there are lots of insects that are beneficial. Ladybirds, for example, eat the pests. We want to encourage those. So we're really looking at how we can attract those insects into fields by growing a range of crops rather than just one monoculture. We call that agroecology. But what about flying? Can we ever develop an electric plane? Well, it turns out we can. It's happening. The Wright Electric Company in the United States is working on a plane powered by a 300 kilowatt battery to be able to carry 6 passengers for around 100 miles. Right now, the team is concentrating on getting the plane certified. They hope to launch in 2024. Until then, traveling by air will still account for 2.5% of global emissions. Ultimately, this is about our choices. Are we going to continue with business as usual, or are we going to take steps to address climate change? It's easy to feel overwhelmed, but as Dr. Shuck would say, we can all make a difference. What do you think? Can we turn this around in the next 10 years? Let me know in the comments below.